Welcome back, preschool peeps. We're back.
I know.
Back doing the Corona talk.
Yeah.
Here we are.
Here we are
still in our
again.
homes. Yeah. And bringing you another topic having to do with these very unusual times that we're in. I'm going to try something fancy. I'm hoping it works on the video. It may or may not if you're watching us on YouTube. If you're not watching on YouTube, don't worry. I'm going to narrate what I'm going to attempt to put on the screen. And who knows if it'll even make it onto the YouTube video. So I'm just going to narrate anyway. Alison and I have reached technology experimental phase, apparently. So
True.
I'm going to experiment a little bit.
Absolutely true. Yeah.
What works, right? What works and what doesn't.
What works
on
and what
video.
doesn't work. Yeah.
And we're going to do that based on the topic of the kind of intolerance and burnout that young children may be feeling right now in relation to this distance learning and the rest of their lives in shelter in place, frankly. Yeah. I think we all, to some extent, have reached a point where we're over it. This is like drudgery. And we're like way over it. And
I think we're over it a little bit.
We would like to know, and I think that's why, like where Alison and I live, the governors have gone on TV this week to talk about their reopening plans without any dates or times, knowing they can't reopen now, but they just want people to know there's a plan, we're planning, everybody stick with it. Yeah, stick with it. We know that this is getting tiring, and we know people are reaching their saturation point for all this, so they're trying to give us hope by saying, look, we're outlining a plan, even though they can't institute it yet.
It's a plan with no
beginning point.
No beginning point.
It's a plan with no beginning point. But all right, okay.
Yeah, so but no, I'm glad they have a plan. I'm happy that they need a plan. I mean, I'm glad. So they can just be like, okay, here's the date we're going to start it. That's good.
They said this week, both the governors of our state and the neighboring state, we're in New Jersey, both New Jersey and New York governors said this week they're identifying people to serve on these reopen and recovery committees that they're forming. And I honestly believe it's mostly just to give us all hope because we've had it with this. And I think for certain the children have had it with this. Families are talking about their children's behavior shifting and the coping mechanisms dropping off. And I told Alison I'm doing research for professional development about this. So I'm just going to share a snippet of that on this podcast so that people maybe would understand what's happening emotionally with the children and why we're seeing behaviors exacerbated or changed and why we're seeing that in ourselves maybe. So I'm going to do this fancy thing on Zoom now where I try to share my screen, but who knows how that's going to go on YouTube video. We shall see. So do you see it? Not fancy? Okay.
So fancy.
Thank you
very
much.
Did you make this?
I did, sort of. The graphic, as you can see, comes from psychologytoday.com.
Oh, nice. Okay.
And can you see the whole slide, Alison?
I can, other than like where the camera is.
You can move that, I think.
Oh. See, I'm not technologically advanced.
Okay,
I can. This is great.
Look at how exciting we are today. All right, so the slide that I have up for people who are listening to us rather than watching on YouTube talks about a phrase that Dr. Daniel Siegel defined in 2009 in a book he wrote, Mind Shifts. He talked about the window of tolerance we all have. And the slide shows 3 different sections on a graph that was published in Psychology Today based on his discussion about the window of tolerance. The window of tolerance is the place at which we can, with some fluctuations in our coping skills, remain open, curious, present, grounded, and able to self-regulate our emotions. Stimuli is received, but we're still calm enough and our brains function well enough that we can take in that stimulus, and to different degrees we can tolerate new information, new stimuli, being reintroduced to old stimuli. We can tolerate it still. We can process the input. Once we are very stressed and anxious and fed up and upset, and many of the things people are feeling right now, another thing is when we are sleep deprived, and that's an important part because I don't think any of us are sleeping well. once we are stressed, sad, or sleep deprived, our window of tolerance closes. We no longer can tolerate what's happening around us, and we tend to go one of two ways, according to Dr. Siegel. We either become hyper aroused, where we become more anxious, more angry, more overwhelmed, more hypervigilant, more chaotic, more energetic, or we go in the other direction. It can happen either way, where we become hypo-aroused, which means we become depressed, passive, numb, withdrawn, we shut down. So you tend to go one of two ways, according to Dr. Siegel. When your window of tolerance closes, you either become more emotional and anxious, or you lose your emotions, sort of, and become numb. And neither one of those extremes is good, let's just say. So you may be with young children who have their window of tolerance because of sleep deprivation, sadness, stress, the change in their routines, whatever it is, their reactions to the adult emotions. The window of tolerance is closing, so now their behavior is even more than it was before, or you're noticing they're less active and they're becoming more passive and withdrawn. Their window of tolerance may have shrinked. And one issue in regard to young children in particular is that the prefrontal cortex of the brain shuts down when our window of tolerance closes. The prefrontal cortex of the brain is right behind your forehead. It's the last part of the brain to fully develop. And studies currently show that that doesn't fully develop until you're in your 30s. So children already have an underdeveloped part of their brain that regulates emotion, not regulates emotion, but regulates their ability to cope with emotion. Self-regulation, impulse control, higher level decision-making is in the prefrontal cortex of the brain. So that's already underdeveloped, which means their window of tolerance is already smaller than ours. They already have less coping skills they were taught. And so now they're kind of going bananas. You're going to enjoy the next slide, Allison. What it is a picture of a child like by a window screaming. You can't see it. And my slide, I just put, children have limits to what they can tolerate. They have underdeveloped coping strategies and overactive alarm systems. So folks, that's why the children are behaving the way they are in this, what is my current week 7 of having to tolerate all this, right?
7. Yes.
So their overactive emotional alarm systems and their lack of coping strategies and development of that part of their brain that helps them to self-regulate is causing their lack of tolerance for the class Zoom sessions, for your instructions on what to do, for maintaining their routines at home, for doing anything looking like schoolwork. Many of them at this point have reached their emotional limit and their brain development limit. And so we are particularly challenged, right?
Yeah. Yes.
And I don't know about you, Allison, but I also feel like, I mean, yesterday I contacted Allison yesterday and said, I'm having a bad day. This is,
yeah, she did. And I just wanted to give you a hug. That's why I was like, what can I do to help you? Because it's like so hard. It's so, yeah, I feel like looking at the previous graphic where there's some days I'm in the hyper arousal where I'm like, oh boy, like the anxiety is high, or I have a lot of energy or whatever it is. And then there's other days where I'm like, all right, I'm okay. I'm back in my window. And then maybe the next time I'm in like the hypo where I'm like, this is depressing. Like, I don't feel like doing anything. I'm just like,
I think what's happening is we're swinging, right?
Back and forth. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think some days I'm actually okay. And then other days I'm like, whoa, like I'm really depressed today, or I'm really like crazy anxious today. I mean, Cindy knows my anxious days because I usually text her and be like, do you know what I heard or something? Like,
yeah, everybody calm down. I'm always like, calm down. You don't know.
Yeah.
But I feel like yesterday, I definitely reached where I was like kind of sleep deprived. I was feeling very stressed. I had to go to the post office to send something to my son that he needs. And we're all there with the 6-foot distancing and the masks and everything. And this guy walks in with no mask, regardless of the signs that are on the door that says you have to wear face masks, totally disregarding his space from other people. I think that's what sent me over the edge. Yeah. Closed my window of tolerance. I was feeling so stressed and freaked out by the reactions of other people to this and the lack of regard for the people around them, that I just was like, this is it. I've reached it and I can't do it. And I hope that as we work with children and families in this crisis, we remember what that feels like for us, because they're feeling the same. We're just not all in sync. I may be feeling that one day and you're feeling that another day, but we're all feeling it. Yeah. So I think the question becomes, what do we do? So wait, I have a couple of slides. What do we do?
Yeah, because I think I need to know what to do. I had one of those days yesterday too, where I seriously raced home. Like, I don't go out often. So I was so proud of myself for going out. This is like the range of emotion. I was like, yay, I'm so proud of myself. I'm out and about. This is great. I'm out. And then stuff happened. I was like, whoa, we need to go home now. Like, I was done. And I don't know. I didn't know how to handle it. So I was like, let me just go home to my safe place. So maybe if I had ways of like coping with it while I'm out, that would help.
Hard to say. I don't think that there is any coping with this.
There is.
I don't know if there is any coping. All right. So let's say the child has become hyperactive, hyper aroused, right? The emotions and the anxiety and the fight or flight are really strong. According to the Attachment and Trauma Treatment Center, which is located in Canada, this is their advice. They say, when we need to calm the children, here are some things we need to do. Deep breathing. Interestingly, drinking through a straw calms us. It must be the breathing. It must be the breathing, how you have to breathe in. Throwing some kind of ball around is helpful. Jumping if you have a mini trampoline. Using warm water, like a warm bath or a warm foot soak, or just kind of wash down with warm water. Shaking out their extra energy. Children need to move and they're being told to sit still far too much. Calming music, things like that. Comforting food. This is how we can kind of calm their emotional centers of their brain and get them to come back within their window of tolerance, because that's the goal. We need to bring ourselves and the children back within the window of tolerance all the time. Yeah. And then if the children go in the other direction and they've shut down, you're going to notice a lot of the advice is the same. We have to engage their senses. Interesting stuff, though. The Attachment and Trauma Treatment Center said to have them chew crunchy foods, chewy and crunchy foods. That's a sensory thing that it will calm them. Anything that stimulates the senses. Smelling things like essential oils, using shakers for tactile, for hand input through the hands. Movement, again, the trampoline, the throwing balls, rocking chairs, finger paint, because it engages the senses. Water play with a straw. Instead of drinking this time, it's blowing through the straw. It's the exhaling, you're blowing it out. And dancing and music. So I thought this was very interesting information that we should share with all of you.
This is great.
So the key to, if you're feeling extremely anxious, is to use that energy, and get out in fresh air too, and like use that energy up. And the key, if you feel yourself becoming depressed and shut down, is to engage your senses and do some mindfulness practices. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen, especially in the event that this didn't work on the video for YouTube. Who knows? But if it did, we're back. So Alison, when I started to describe to Alison this research that I was doing for the professional development sessions, which again is a longer topic than just those slides, but we were like, we should share this with our listeners and viewers, because no doubt in your house you're feeling like either you have gone to the extremes, your children have gone to the extremes, or you're all going to the extremes, and you need some tools to come back within your window of tolerance. And I think that Dr. Siegel, if his work wasn't significant from 2009 to now, in the past 11 years, like this doctor must be very busy now. Because, thanks, Dr. Siegel. There are many videos of him talking about all these phenomena on YouTube, by the way.
Really?
You can watch him talk about it. Yeah.
All right.
Yes. He does this great model of the brain to explain it to children, where he uses his hand like this. You have to find him on YouTube. Because this is the upper part of the brain. This is
and then it flips up, and then the whole you flip your lid kind of thing.
Yeah,
I've seen that. I went to a professional development that did that. They're like, "This is your brain," and then when people say you flip your lid or you lose your top.
We're making a fist and we're tucking our thumb in.
Yeah.
So apparently that whole flipping your lid thing, he talks about it in his videos. I wonder if that's also originated with Dr. Siegel.
It might be. It's a what was that workshop in? Positive discipline, but I could be
Probably.
wrong. I don't remember. It was years ago that I went to it, but I remember that because everybody's like, oh. And then there was also like different other things that they talked about the brain.
Yeah.
Like everybody's got a certain type of brain or something. It was interesting, but I don't remember a lot of it now because it was so.
I think it's really important that people remember
Yeah.
this is about the brain and the chemicals that are
Yeah.
coursing through your body. This isn't about children trying to drive you mad. As much as it may
Right.
feel that way, it's not about the
Right.
children just being obstinate. It's not about the children just being willful. And it's not about the children trying to drive you crazy in your shelter in place. It's about children struggling with the stress hormones and all that are flowing through their body and the situation that they have found themselves in and the trauma. This is about traumatic struggle. And I'm so worried about these children because they're all starting out now with a baseline of one adverse childhood experience, one stressful, traumatic childhood experience. And we know that once children have a couple of these sorts of experiences, they add up and they cause issues for them in the long term. And every child now is starting with a baseline of one traumatic experience who's lived through this. So I as someone who teaches about social emotional development and child development, I find this very concerning because I teach about the long-term impact of trauma on children, and it's like no joke. So I'm hoping that if we as adults can kind of take a deep breath, use our own coping skills to keep our windows of tolerance open so that we can see the children in their struggle for what it is, that will help them in the long term.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Alison, what are they going to be like when they come back to school?
God, it's going to be so much, a lot of social emotional learning has to go on here just to repair what's going on. It's going to be difficult. It's going to be hard for everyone. It's just going to be, we just got to be there for each other and try to get them through it and build them back up. You know, it's going to be hard.
Yeah, as we try to build ourselves back up at the same time,
Yeah,
which is no easy task. I mean, I think rightfully so, both parents and teachers are going to be fearful when we head back to school, and we're going to have to manage our own anxiety in order to help the children. And it's going to be really important that we're able to manage our anxiety and seek the help that we need to do that so that we can be there for these poor kids who understand so much less of it than we even understand.
Right.
You know, it's going to be, we can't feel like we're going to flip a switch and now the kids are just going to go back to being carefree again. It's not the truth.
It's not. Although I talk to a lot of people who do think it's going to be like that. I'm like, no, it's not. Well, and also like I've talked on here before, it's like not ever like, there's probably some kids that are thrilled to be home too. So like, it's going to be, there's teachers that are thrilled to be home. So like all this like, oh, we'll just go back and be one big happy family again. Like, no, it's not ever going to be the same. The same kids are not coming back. They're not going to be the same as they were in February.
The adults either. I don't know why adults
either.
Children to be the same when I think most adults now can look at each other and say, I've been changed by this in some way, whether you're more anxious or you're more, or some people are discovering, wait a minute, I like being home. And they're going to force me to go back to work. Like people are in different places with this, but I think it's a fair statement that this sudden drastic change to our lifestyles has changed us. We're going to have to do things we didn't have to do before.
And it might have changed you and you don't even know how yet.
Yeah.
You know, a year from now, you might be like, oh, wow. Like you don't even realize all the effects of what's going on right now. You might not know for a year, 5 years, 10 years and be like, whoa, I went through that in 2020 and this is how it changed me. I mean, and it could be
positive change too, by the way.
It might be good change.
It could be good change. People could be sitting and thinking, I have to rethink what I do because I'm realizing this about myself. So people could be propelled. Trauma, my understanding of trauma is that there's really a couple of paths it can take. One is that it negatively affects you for a really long time. And the other is that the effect becomes positive and you make positive changes to your life because of it. So it can really go either way. We just don't know yet.
Yeah.
You know, but I think it's fair to say we're all going to be changed by it in some way. So why wouldn't the children be?
Right. For you to expect them to come back and be like, oh, this is great. Like, no, they're different too. Their whole
Yep.
family is different. Everybody's different. And you're gonna have
Everybody's different.
some people who have lost people, and
Yeah.
it's not ever going to be the same. It's gonna be a new normal, I guess, but they're not the same as they were in January. So
Right.
don't
And we'll
expect them
find
to
our
be.
new normal. We'll find
Yeah.
our new
Oh,
normal.
absolutely. Yeah.
We'll find it.
Yeah.
And you know, anyone who's been through any kind of traumatic event in their life before knows you eventually come to a new normal, and it's not the same. And there are things you may miss about the past, but you adjust. I think we're adjusting. I personally am adjusting to being home now. And I'm worried, like, what's it going to be like when I have to set an alarm, get dressed, and leave here real quick? Like, it's going to feel weird.
Thinking about that gives me a lot of anxiety.
Yeah.
Because I have adjusted to being at home. I actually have been really enjoying being at home. And so to think of like, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to like get up on time, be on a schedule, leave my dog, sit in traffic, go to work.
Be among the people.
Be among the people.
Wear a mask.
Gives me a lot of anxiety to just think about it. So I've been like just not really thinking about it sometimes.
Okay, good luck with that strategy.
And then
that'll work until they say back to work, everybody.
Right, it worked
that could
until
be a ways in
today
the
when I
future.
read an article about how the governor wants to go back to school, and I'm like, no, I'm not.
No, the governor didn't say that. That's a news source's interpretation.
Cindy had to talk me down before the podcast because I was like freaking out.
Stop it. That's a news outlet's interpretation of a very innocent statement made by the governor.
But here I was freaking out because that's what gives me anxiety. My lid had flipped, I guess. All right,
so to keep Alison within her window of tolerance, we're going to recommend that she not read the news.
Yeah.
I'll let you know when it's time to go back.
Yeah, tell me. You can just tell me.
I'll just
I've been pretty good about not watching the news.
Yeah.
I've been trying to like just watch things that make me like come out of this world. Like, because you hear so much about like the COVID and everything that like at night, like when I turn my TV on, I don't want to hear more about it. I want to hear, I want to just watch comedy that's like funny and going to make me laugh so I don't have to think about it for a little while, or a drama where I can get really into it, like something that takes my mind.
All right, so here's what I'm going to say.
Yeah.
Find ways to stay within your window of tolerance, Alison. and I think we all need to find ways to do that to help the children who don't have the ways really, but without our help, to stay within that window. I hope the information that was shared on this episode is helpful to people. And I hope that whole screen sharing thing worked out a little bit. And
I hope
if
so too,
not,
that was
so
great.
be it. So be it. I otherwise, at least I narrated.
Or we'll try to learn how to do that. And
one way or another.
No,
so we're gonna let the people go and think this all over and take a look at their kids or their students, and remember, they just are outside their Dr. Siegel window of tolerance. And we need to help them come back in. Yeah. So take care, preschool peeps.
Bye,
We'll catch you again on coronavirus, starring Cindy and Alison on How Preschool Teachers Do It. You can reach out to us on howpreschoolteachersdoit.com. Keep listening, sharing, subscribing, rating, and all that stuff. And we'll catch you again soon.
Bye.